All right, welcome everybody. This is the first of hopefully a series of events like this every session or once a semester. I'm Dr. Stefanie Sevcik. I am teaching a course right now in liberal studies at Mercer called Issues of Justice in a Global Community, and the subtitle for the course is Sex and Resistance. So my students are here to share some insights and research that they've done on women, artists, activists with connections to the Arab world and connections to sexual assault awareness and prevention. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to make sure to share it with the bells and whistles of optimized sound. Because there will be some students who are showing little videos, so we want to make sure this works. Does everybody see my screen here? Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Good. It's a little
Perfect.
blurry. Oh, okay, that's better.
So I will put this in presentation mode. All right, so here we are, Resist, an interactive presentation on global women artist activists. And this is to kind of celebrate or commemorate or honor Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, as well as Arab American Heritage Month, which both happen to fall in April. So I'm hosting this now, but my hosting duties are fairly limited. Most of what's going to come is going to be the wonderful work of the students. So they will lead us in learning some things about some women artist activists. And sort of between each section, they'll lead us in a little interactive activity related to the woman that they're presenting on. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started and take it away. Group one, let us know. Tell us about Mona Eltahawy, group one.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley Mizell. Group one is comprised of myself, Kelsey Clark, and Joy McGee, and we are so happy that you're joining us. As group one, we had the honor of covering the author whose book we've been reading all semester. Her name is Mona Eltahawy, who is pictured here, alongside her two books, Headscarves and Hymens, Why the Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution, and then the book we have covered in class, The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls. Next slide, please. So here is just a bit of background on Mona Eltahawy. She is, as I mentioned, she's a writer and also a journalist, an activist. She is a political commentator, and she focuses a lot of her work on Arab and Muslim issues and global feminism. She was born in Egypt, but she also has citizenship in the United States, and she's lived in other places as well, like the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. And as I mentioned, she's known for her books, but she also has worked as a news reporter for various media outlets in places like Egypt, Palestine, Syria, and China, among a bunch of other places. And you can see some of the places where where her work has appeared, including the Washington Post and The Guardian. She is incredibly prolific and very passionate about her advocacy for women's rights, as well as LGBTQ+ rights, and for women and girls who have been sexually assaulted. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So on this slide, there are several notable quotes and excerpts from Mona Eltahawy. I'm not going to read them all, but I did want to highlight one of them from one of her New York Times opinion articles over here on the right-hand side, which is about a really notable moment in her career surrounding her coverage of the protests of the president at the time of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak. And she says, "I too became a victim. In November 2011, the riot police beat me, broke my left arm and right hand, and sexually assaulted me before I was detained by the Interior Ministry and then military intelligence. Later, I went on Egyptian television with both arms in casts and with x-rays of my injuries. I tried unsuccessfully to sue the regime." unquote. So I thought this quote really paints a picture of who she is as an activist. She doesn't just talk about it, she walks the walk and she speaks from experience. And, these other quotes, hopefully you can have some time to look at them later, are just some concrete examples of Mona Eltahawy's work and how she speaks on these topics. Next slide. So on this slide, we have a quick video, which includes it's a short video of her just kind of discussing her work. Could you play it, Dr. S?
I'm nodding to everything that Layla is saying, because my first book was about patriarchy in the Middle East and North Africa. Some people now refer to it as Southwest Asia and North Africa. And that's what Headscarves and Hymens, Why the Middle East Needs a Sexual Revolution was about. And I wrote it right after the revolutions that began with this one man in Tunisia who set himself on fire in 2010, Mohammed Bouazizi, of course. And the whole point of my first book was that if it was a man who began these revolutions, it will be women who will complete these revolutions in our region. Now, I wrote The 7 Necessary Sins, my second book, because I wanted to take patriarchy global, because I wanted to take that fuck the patriarchy to the entire world, especially to address that point that you're talking about, Salma, which is nowhere in the world do women or queer people truly and fully own their bodies.
So yeah, as you can see, Mona is a bit of a fiery personality. In one of the previous pictures, you might have noticed she had red hair, and she says that she dyed it that color as a way of asserting herself and her survival after what she's been through. And it's just a bit of a defiance, especially when a lot of Muslim women are so often have to hide their hair. So, and I think the style also just kind of matched her personality. As I mentioned, she's just a very passionate person. So one of those passions is fighting against patriarchy and its assault on women and girls. And I would say nearly all of her work is about that advocacy, which makes her such a great opener for our event. But we wanted to discuss it through the lens of these 2 hashtags that she started on Twitter back in 2018. The first one is hashtag #MosqueMeToo. I'm sure all of you will recall the Me Too movement of, I think, 2017, which was largely about the reckoning of Hollywood and its abuse of women. But Mosque Me Too was about adding another dimension to that, and it was about the sexual violence that Muslim women were experiencing in sacred spaces, such as in Mecca during Hajj. Hajj is an annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, which is the holiest city for Muslims, and all Muslims must take this pilgrimage at least once in their lives. For Mona Eltahawy, she took this trip in 1982 when she was just 15 years old, and she was harassed and groped at the time, despite being covered head to toe in her hijab in what is supposed to be a sacred space. So Mosque Me Too allowed her, along with thousands of other Muslim women, to share their stories of sexual assault in their places of worship. And then not long thereafter, she started the hashtag I Beat My Assaulter. In this case, Mona Eltahawy was sharing a story where she was once again being assaulted while just kind of minding her business. She was hanging out one night, having a nice time, and a man groped her. And instead of letting it go, she decided that she wanted to fight back and let this man know that he should never touch a woman without her consent. So she punched him and she kind of smacked him, and she said she unleashed her rage, basically. And she shared that story with that hashtag, and she encouraged other women to do the same thing. And I think the interesting thing is when she was asked about like nonviolent alternatives, she mentions how the goalposts are often moved for women who are assaulted. So, for example, when the Mosque Me Too hashtag went viral, people would ask why they didn't fight back more or why they didn't make more of a fuss. So the I Beat My Assaulter hashtag was an answer to that, and to also like move beyond the victim blaming and focus on solutions. So I would say that Mona Eltahawy is just very unapologetic about encouraging women to do what is necessary for their survival. Next slide. Okay, so on that note, we have a quick little activity we wanted to do with everybody participating this evening. It's based on the book we've studied this semester, The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls. Mona says, Christianity preaches the 7 deadly sins. The Gospel of Mona presents instead the 7 necessary sins women and girls need to employ to disrupt the patriarchy. They are anger, attention, profanity, ambition, power, violence, and lust. So here we have 7 quotes, each matching one of the sins listed. And we're going to ask everyone to participate in a quick poll just to try and match each of the quotes to the sin that you think it belongs to. Dr. S, can you open up the poll?
Yes, I'll get the poll going, and then you all should just be able to access it and click through it. I think there are 7 questions here.
Yes, basically just read the quote and then choose the sin that you think it belongs to, and then we'll go through the answers after everyone has submitted their answers.
And folks, even if you are in the class, you should participate in the poll.
Yes, please do. We tried not to make it too easy for those who've read the book.
This poll is amazing.
Oh, thank you, Ellie.
Dr. Sevcik, can you open it up for me again? Because I somehow submitted after only completing one. I'm very clever that way, sorry.
Yes, I don't know if that's possible. I think if
Okay.
I relaunch
Well,
it, it'll relaunch it for everybody.
don't worry about it.
She'll talk through the answers, so you'll get to kind of hear it all.
Said I clicked before I scrolled.
It's all right. We're all just living in Zoom's world. So as soon as we get most participants completing the poll, Ashley, I'll just share the results so that everybody can kind of see them and you can walk us through them, okay?
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you all for bearing with us. We're trying to just do kind of one big presentation so that we're not having to constantly share different screens, but there are bound to be glitches at some point. All right, it looks like we're pretty close to everybody. We're past the 90 percentile of participants with the poll. So I'm going to go ahead and give people 5 seconds and end the poll. All right, so if you haven't finished, I guess it's just going to submit for you. Okay, I'll share the results here.
Okay. Interesting results. So first quote, who determines what is civil and what is rude? With 48% of the vote saying profanity, you guys are correct. And then for the next one, what if instead of breaking their wildness, like a rancher tames a bronco, we taught girls the importance and the power of being dangerous? Interesting results again. The second result was violence, but top result was anger with 53%, and that is correct. I feel like this shows the power of our class and you guys are paying attention. Let's see. Number 3, the revolution is incomplete if it focuses on our autonomy only from the state. Ooh. Interesting result. It looks like the top result is power, but the correct answer was lust. And just for people who are not in our class, we haven't gotten to that chapter yet, so that might explain the results. Number 4, the most subversive thing a woman can do is talk about her life as if it really matters, because it does. With 82% of the results saying attention, that is the correct answer. Number 5, it is the right of women and girls not to just fight back against the crimes of patriarchy, but surely it should also be our right to fight to dismantle patriarchy. 63% of the results said violence, which is the correct answer. Number 6, patriarchy will allow a few women into places they have not been allowed before and call it progress. With, I feel like we tricked you guys and I'm very sorry. The actual correct answer was power, which was not an option here. And most people said ambition, which I think makes sense. So that was a little fluke, but just so you know, the answer was power. And then lastly, heaven forbid other women see, i.e. get ideas, that we too can be the star, not just of a hit television show or a movie franchise, but simply of our own lives. With 30, I think the last question kind of messed everyone up, but 39% of the vote, ambition is the correct answer for that one. So hopefully you guys took something away from that. That is our time. Thank you so, so much for participating and taking a bit of time to learn about Mona Eltahawy.
Thank you, Ashley. I should have had your group write us a final exam, but I guess we kind of we got this in the poll, so thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I do actually have one more quick poll that I wanted to, a kind of pre-poll, which is 3 quick questions about people's knowledge of these topics before we move on to the next group. Let's see. So this is just a little pre-event poll, and then I'll give you another one at the end to see kind of what people thought. So this should only take a couple of seconds here. And then we'll see what our next group has in store. But that was great, Ashley. Thank you, the Mona Eltahawy group.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for putting so much positive feedback in the chat too, to kind of cheer on your classmates as we move through all of these really interesting women. So we're getting close to the end of the poll. Let's see what we have here for results. I'll share these with you all too. I don't know if I'll be able to see them as I go. It's kind of weird, the sharing the screen. All right. Ashley, do you mind unmuting and telling us what you see here on the results? I'm not actually able to see them on my side very easily.
Oh, sure. So for the first question, we have 10% answered they are at a 10, they're an expert. 5% said 8, 10% said 6, 14% said 5, 19% said 4 and 3, 10% said 2, and then 14% said 1.
All right. Okay. So kind of a wide distribution there. What about for question 2?
For question 2, let's see, 0% for 10 and 9, 10% for 8 and 7, 0% for 6, let's see, 5% for 5, 24% at 4, 5% at 3, 24% at 2 and 1, and 0% at 0.
Okay. And then did I accidentally click out of it?
No.
Or do you still see the results? Well,
Yep.
so what are the results on that last one then?
So then for number 3, we have 5% at 10, as a rating of 10, 0% at 9, 10% at 8, 5% at 7, 14% at 6 and 5, 5% at 4 and 3, 19% at 2, and 14% at 1.
All right. All right. We'll see how these things line up with the end of the end of the meeting, see how much people learn, right? After watching all of these good presentations. Okay, great. Group 1. So now let's hear about our next woman artist activist, Mona Haydar.
All right, hello everyone. We are group 2 and we are comprised of Tamia, Luce, Lakshmi, and myself, Casey. Our project is on Mona Haydar, and she is a rapper, poet, and activist. And if y'all want to go ahead and get pen and paper or open a notes app on your device, something that you can write something down for our game that's going to be at the end. That way you're not scrambling at the end. That'd be great. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. All right, and here are some quick facts about Mona. You can peruse those, but she is a Syrian American who has a background in both Michigan and Damascus, Syria. And while Mona's artistic expression is diverse, she is best known as a rapper who works to blend the Syrian American identity with her social activism and views, as her song Hijabi expresses, which you'll get to see here on the next slide. And next slide.
You were being subtle to
I know.
communicate the next slide. Okay, there we go. Next slide. Yeah.
Okay. And here's just some quick facts about her current life. But Mona continues to be an active artist and activist, although she is now residing in Mexico with her husband and children. And you can go ahead and move it on over. Okay. And she has a lot of powerful quotes and lyrical lines. One of my favorites of hers is, "We are the generation that won't be silenced." And as I mentioned before, this is the song Hijabi, and we're going to play just like a minute of it so that you can kind of get a sense of what her music is about. If you would kindly play the video.
What the hair look like? Bet the hair look nice. Don't that make you sweat? Don't that feel too tight? Yo, what your hair look like? Bet your hair look nice. How long your hair is? You need to get your life. You only see Oriental. You steady working that dental. You popping up at the lip and run your mouth like a treadmill. Not your exotic vacation. I'm bored with your fascination. I need that paper, paper, paper. If you want education. All around the world, love women every shade of I still rap my hijab, rap my hijab, rap my hijab, rap my hijab. Keep swagging my hijab, swagging my hijab, swagging my hijab, swagging my hijab. Me and my hijabi ladies, we was born in the 80s, so pretty like the Euphrates and party like some Kuwaitis, deeper than some diplomas, current like some hot yoga, taking back the misnomers and teleporting through trauma, teleporting through trauma, teleporting through trauma. I've been stacking my karma, Nefertiti, no drama. Make a feminist planet, woman haters get banished. Covered up or not, don't ever take us for granted. All around the world, love women every shade and be so liberated. All around the world, love women every shade and power run deep. So even if you hate it, I still rap my hijab, rap my hijab.
Okay, I know you said only a minute, but it's kind of addictive, so hopefully
Yeah.
people will look her up and finish the song on their own time. But thank you.
Yeah, so as you can tell, she has a very interesting style, and I really enjoyed the imagery and message in the music video and the lyrics of themselves. And you can take from it where she's really blending her American identity with her Syrian identity, just with the beats and the lyrics alone. But now I'm going to pass it off to Luce, who will tell you more about Miss Haydar.
Hi, I'm Lucy. And like Cassie stated, Mona Haydar is a rapper and she's a poet. Her songs are used as a way for her to raise sexual awareness and also showcase her activism. She said in one of her lyrics, "My voice is a weapon, my hijab is my armor." And throughout her song, next slide, please. Throughout her song, she challenges, stereotype. She defies expectation and rejects objectification. We put some quote directly from her lyrics right there when she do all that, so you guys can kind of go through it. "More than a fabric on my head, I am a woman, get it straight instead." So she's telling people she's not just a hijab, she's a woman, and that's it, point blank, period. because Mona dares to speak about, the patriarchy within the Muslim community and xenophobia from the outside, she's hated by the all-white conservative and the hardcore Muslim as well. But this is not stopping her. She's still out there, doing her activism and singing her lyrics. And she said, privatizing my sexuality empowers me so that I'm not just a sex object. And as you know, people tend to sexualize and fetishize women with hijab. And hijab means a lot to Muslim women. So she wants those women to feel comfortable, to feel empowered by the hijab. And as Mona Hathaway, we've learned all the seven sins, Haydar can be accused of the sin of ambition because she dared to want more for Muslim women in the community. She can also be accused of the sin of profanity because she used a lot of provocative languages in her lyrics. And the sin of power because Mona is taking place. She is making noise. She is out there saying stuff that, a Muslim woman should not dare say. She's talking about her sexuality. She talks about her body. She says stuff that people shouldn't, women in general shouldn't say. And she's also can be accused of the sin of power because she is here. She is calling out the sexism. She is trying to dismantle the patriarchy within the Muslim community. And while she's doing all that, she's been called a traitor. They call her terrorist. They say she's working for ISIS, and she's facing a lot of backlash in the media. But despite all of that, she keeps pushing back, and she's telling them that she is here to stay, and she's here to call them out. And now I will be passing it on to Amia that will be doing a little interactive game.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, Luce. And if we go to the next slide, and the next slide after that. And one more.
We kind of covered this right?
We
hopefully.
did, yes.
Yep. That's okay. We got it.
Absolutely. So my name is Tamia Sammons, and as our team shared, Mona is an artist, rapper, and creator. She has used her voice to raise awareness of issues such as peace, social justice, and the experience of Muslim and Arab American women. That said, we thought it would be fun to unscramble some of Mona's most popular songs. Now, if you remember, Casey told you to grab a pen and paper. If you have your screen up, pull up Word really quick and just indulge us in this word scramble. We're going to give you 1 minute. And while we give you this 1 minute and maybe even an answer to get you started, we're going to listen to another one of Mona's songs. So you have 1 minute to unscramble these 4 words. Go. Oh, I see Ashley over there working.
Take the pain away. If you let me, if you let me. Everybody's so confused, trying to numb it all. Getting high, popping pillies or the alcohol. On the verge of crisis, battling internal ISIS. Trying to stay above the water, but we out here drowning. Beautiful, very deep, gotta hold our breath. Die before our death, dive deep, drown, keep breathing, keep being, keep clearing, keep seeing, keep breathing. Shedding old pattern, no longer serving me. Swerving on stink negativity, burn the Palo Santo, burning all the sage. Put me on a pedestal, wait and watch me fall. No.
Nice. So as you all can see, I'm smiling. This is during our research on Mona. I'd never heard of her. So as we were just learning about her and researching, I was listening to some of her songs, and this came out to be my favorite. So I have learned of a new artist, not just of an awesome woman, just a new artist. And I really do love this song. So if you think you have all 4, you can raise your virtual hand. You can drop them in the chat. I think Zay may have dropped the answers in the chat. And Zay, you are right on point, Zay Bonds. The first word is hijabi in the first song. And you all heard a little bit of that earlier. The second one is Good Body. The next one is Barbarian. And the last one was the one we just heard here, which was Lifted. So if you have the chance, I will tell you all, just listen in just a little bit to Mona Haydar. Her lyrics, they may resonate with you and you may find even some commonality in them. And I will also just, as I conclude, share that all of her songs, not just the four listed here, they speak to women and they serve as a reminder, in Mona's words, to love yourself generously, beautifully, and joyfully, in spite of any active or subliminal efforts to make us as women feel unworthy of love and life. Thank you all for your presence and time today. And I'm going to pass it on to group 3.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And Stacy, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Stacy had all the words scrambled, I'm sure.
Okay.
I
She's an
did.
overachiever. Yeah.
I definitely did. No, I was saying I heard Suicide Doors, and yeah, I love her music. But no, I
Yeah,
didn't know
that was a nice one too.
Yeah, definitely check out some of these other songs. Good Body is a good one. I mean, they're very catchy, and they get into your head, and they have a good message. So yeah, great. Thank you, group 2. So next up, we have a cartoonist. Why don't you talk to us about this cartoonist, group 3?
Hi, we are group 3. We have our presentation entitled All Eyes on the Hijabi Girl, and exploring who the F is she. She has always had all eyes on her, being singled out for wearing an hijabi and her Arabic Muslim heritage. This presentation is presented by Stacy Calvin, myself, and Evan Wilson.
That's next slide.
Please. I will greet you all in a national Muslim tone. Assalamu alaikum. These are the titles of Huda Fahmy's books in order. Yes, I'm hot in this. These are a compilation of her stories on Instagram. That can be arranged is a Muslim love story talking about dating. She also said that it's a self-love book, and just a little bit of her humor. She dedicated this book, of course, to her husband, whose name is Jihad. In English, jihad means, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, an act of struggling or surviving. But in Muslim or in Arabic, it means a war waged against God. So it's just that's their sick humor. But then Who the F Are You is a story of her first year of high school and just owning who she is as an American, as a Muslim, as a hijabi girl. And Who the F Cares is a funny story about her family taking a trip from Dearborn, Michigan to Walt Disney World, and they had to travel in a car. She was excited about going on a plane, so it's a funny story about traveling and being Muslim and the stereotypes that they have to deal with. Kim?
Next slide, please.
And speaking of Dearborn, Michigan, Huda was born in Detroit, Michigan to 2 immigrants. Her mother from Syria and her father was from Egypt. She identifies herself as an Arab American Muslim. She lived in Dearborn, Michigan until she was 25 years old. Her family spoke only Arabic at home, which made it hard for her and her sister to fit in at school. She stated that she always felt like an outsider, didn't fit in with the other children. But she did learn how to read English from Sunday comic strips, which is actually where her love of comics started. She did go to law school and she had aspirations of becoming a lawyer, but she ended up switching to education. And then from there, she used social media as an outlet and turned her thoughts into a set of comics that discuss issues including representation, microaggressions, and insensitivity. This is one of her comics down here where she's just posting the pictures. Thinks she looks good. Got her hijab, sunglasses, and then she gets a comment from somebody named Fart McTurd, who says, just because you're hip and cool doesn't mean your religion isn't oppressive. And she just says, oh my God, someone thinks I'm hip and cool. So that's just kind of a little bit of what her humor's like. It's not necessarily self-deprecating, but it's just funny. And that'd be next slide, please.
Now that we've learned a little bit from Evan and Stacy about who the F is this cartoonist, we're going to find out about why Huda F actually cares and the why behind she began writing these stories. When Trump got elected, there were a lot of people trying to tell the Muslim story, and they were getting it very wrong. I felt I have such a problem about it. Then why not try to do something about it and share my story with others, not caring about who read it or how many people liked it. That was the commentary from Huda Fahmy in her WNDB interview. Next slide, please.
This is an excerpt from her book that can be arranged, and many of us women can relate, maybe some of our men too. So I focused on myself, see. I realized that when I wanted a guy to like me, I had a tendency to mold and shape myself into the person that I thought he'd like, while my own likes took a back seat. Next slide, please.
Helping young Muslim women and all women crossing that tough pre-adult stage from adolescence into puberty figure out, who am I? What is my identity beyond the girl in the mirror, the outward reflection by which I am judged? How do I individually exist beyond the social labels and judgments cast upon me by others? Can I be selfish and say I wrote this book for me? It is the book I wished I had growing up, struggling with my Muslim, Arab, American identities. I want young readers to benefit because the struggle with identity is so universal and so looming at this age. I hope that hearing there's no right or wrong way to figuring out who you are helps relieve the stress and anxiety that often plague young readers. And right there, this is where her work actually does tie into the sexual identity awareness and our Sexual Awareness Month, and also our Muslim and Arabic Heritage Month, because it is so important in adolescence. It really forms our being and our healthy relationships and identities with ourselves and who we become. Next slide, please.
And
All right,
before
this
we
is the one
begin,
where I'm going to need to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Switching over to it now.
Evan, before you start, real quick, I'm gonna jump in just because I see some of the comments in the chat. We laughed at the titles, who the F are you? After reading Mona's book, we really thought that the F was something other than her last name. So that was funny all on its own because it made you kind of think, outside of the box, not thinking that that was her name, but maybe that she was going somewhere else with the title.
And speaking of
Sorry,
Huda
Evan.
F, no, you're good. Speaking of Huda F, we're going to play a game called Huda F Knows. This is a very abridged but still delightful Jeopardy-esque game. Not exactly like Jeopardy, but kind of close. Where we're going to play some trivia based on Huda, her life, and her culture. Right now we have 4 participants, and what I decided to do is we're going to have 4 participants that have already volunteered, and then we're going to have a 5th participant, which is everybody else. So if you know, you can raise your hand. You can raise your hand on Zoom. You can raise your hand on the camera. I should be able to see everything from here, I think. And as soon as I click this, we'll be ready to go. It's going to be pretty quick. It's not going to be very long. We're not going to do all of them. So we'll go ahead and begin it. All right. So these are our 4 contestants plus everybody else. If you want to go first and pick the category and the money type that you want to use. Who are we going to have? Who wants to raise their hand? Somebody show. Oh, there's Alicia. All right, Alicia, go ahead.
I'll take Are You Islamophobic for $200, please.
Are you Islamophobic for $200? You will notice the answer is actually just a question, or the question is a question. So go ahead. Hate crimes are a characteristic of what type of person that is prejudiced towards Muslims?
Oh my gosh.
No pressure.
Oh, we have a hand.
We have a hand in. Alicia, we're going to pass it to Casey.
Islamophobes?
Survey says Islamophobia. Casey gets one. What was it? 200? Yay! All right. Casey, pick the category and the price.
Let's do comedic relief for 300.
Comedic relief for 300. What Muslim cultural identity does Fahmy write about in a comedic way of who the F cares? I don't know what that is there. Anybody? All right, we're gonna skip that one. The answer is
Okay, I'll go.
Oh,
Being
oh.
Arab American.
I
answer.
think so. I think something along those lines. We'll just go with
Everybody
that.
else can get 300.
Being Muslim in public. Okay, being Muslim in
Well, no,
Disney
Dr.
World.
S is actually on one of the
Yeah, I was one of the contestants, okay. Which
Oh.
doesn't seem fair. You should have chosen
Oh.
some.
Well, we kind of ran out of time on that. Anyways, go ahead and pick the next one.
Let's go with cultural Muslimism for 500, please.
Oh, she's going for the big one.
Oh,
All right.
it's a big
Go
one.
big or go
Western
home.
Islamophobic neo-Orientalists base their misogynistic defense of the oppression of Muslim women's identities, freedom, and women's rights on. Tough. Good. Oh, you know this one.
That is wordy.
Wordy.
Mind you, a lot of these are Kim. I'm not taking credit for this.
So we know. I think we're skipping. Oh, she raised her hand. All right. Oh,
right.
Casey, I think Casey had her hand up first.
She can go. That's fine.
Oh,
Oh, Casey, you had your hand up first.
Oh, I did. What is the Muslim religion? I don't know. Well,
I
because
don't think I have a way to see the answer without doing it. So
the Quran. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well,
I don't have a way to see the answer without it.
isn't that what they use?
All right, I think this
Yes.
is the lightning round. I think this is about all we have time for left here.
We'll give Casey that one because that was close enough.
I don't know what that sound was, but I don't know what the sound is happening right now. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. But I got a sound going off on my. Anyways,
That may be the timer.
oh, y'all, I got some kind of sound going off, but I don't know what it is. I think that's all we got time for. Anyways, oh, it's the timer. Oh wow, yeah, that's all we had time for. Actually, we got time for one more. All right, and so Casey,
This is
just
like
pick
the
it.
double or nothing. Whoever
Yeah, this
wins
is for everything. So
yeah, for
everybody else
everything.
could win this one. This is for whatever this number says doesn't matter. So go ahead and pick the topic.
Let's do Huda, you think Fahmy for 400.
I think that's supposed to be is. Yeah, is for 400. All right, here we go. For everything. What is the title of the book Fahmy writes about her experiences as a Muslim immigrant teenager?
It starts with Huda F. and you it ends. I'm helping you guys.
Who the F are you?
Who the F are you?
Oh, who said that?
We all did collectively.
Oh, everyone said
I
it.
think she
All
did.
right, yeah, everybody wins. A bunch of money. Everyone wins it. That's dang. All right. Sorry, Casey, you were ahead for so long, but everyone else won it. All
I
right,
know.
I think that's our time. So thank you guys, and on to group 4.
All right, thank you, Group 3, for that exciting and rollicking ride through Huda F. All the puns, Huda F. But thank you. So this was a let me share my screen again so that we can go to the next group. And this time, oh, there we go. We will hear about a very famous director and graphic novelist, Marjane Satrapi.
Good evening, everyone. I am Rachel, along with Ellie, and Lennox, and we are Group 4. And as Dr. S said, we are going to talk about Marjane Satrapi. She was a film director, novelist, and a cartoonist. Next slide, please. She was raised in Iran with her parents and when she was about 10 years old, the Iranian Revolution broke out. And that's very young and very impressionable on someone of her age. But by her teens, she had already decided that she was not going to live within the bounds that people were giving her. And she was pushing back against the laws and things that were policing women and their bodies and what they should wear and how they should dress. Eventually, as an adult, she did move to France so that she could pursue her higher education. Next slide, please. Tonight, we are going to discuss 2 works of hers in particular. They're both graphic novels. The first one is Persepolis, and the second one will be Chicken and Plums. And they're both coming of age stories, considering what all she lived through, and it kind of sheds a little bit of light about the women's resistance and oppression and how she tries to bring awareness to the sexual assault that was going on. Next, please. First, we're going to talk about Persepolis. And if you want to, there's a little short clip if you want to play that, please. That just kind of gives you a brief overview of the movie Persepolis. And I say, if you have time, go and watch it. Absolutely. It is fantastic. But as a brief overview of it, it talks about a young girl, Marjane, who is growing up in the city of Persepolis and kind of what she is going through as the revolution is going on. You can imagine it did not get very good reviews from the Iranian officials, who thought that she was not portraying them in a very good light. Next slide, please. Some of the quotes that we liked from Persepolis, particularly, the first one is set in a classroom where they have brought all the girls in on one side and all the boys in on the other. And what they're talking about is what the girls are wearing, not necessarily the boys. And the quote is, "You criticize us, yet our brothers have all different hair and clothes. Sometimes they wear clothes so tight we can see their underwear. Why is it that me, as a woman, should their tight clothes have no effect on me, while they should be aroused by a shorter scarf?" And basically what they're saying is all these boys are sitting on one side of the room and they have zero, they have no controls on what they're wearing, but the girls are saying, okay, your scarves are so short, it's turning the men on, so we're gonna make you wear longer scarves, which makes absolutely no sense. And then the next one that I just absolutely loved in the movie, she's running late for class, so she's running down the road and she's completely in all of her garb, but she gets stopped by the police, and the police say, "Maybe, but you mustn't run. When you run, your behind moves in an obscene way." And she looks at them quite bluntly and says, "And stop staring at my ass," and keeps on running, which was there again, how she is just trying to say, you know, I am my own person. You should not be looking at me in a sexual way. That is your fault. That is not mine. And the final one, she is overheard talking to friends on a phone by a family member. And basically the gist of this, she doesn't say she's Iranian. She says she's from France. And her family member questions her and says, why? And she says, basically, because if I tell anybody where I'm from, they immediately think that I'm barbaric and that I'm uncouth, and then they don't want to be around me because they are judging me against everyone else. Next slide, please. And the way this kind of ties in is that she is trying really hard to show the struggles of the women and girls in Iran, including Marjane's defiance of the laws regarding women's modesty in society. And throughout the journey, she discusses the societal pressures and limits placed on women, shedding light on the harm of the gender-based oppression. And as I was saying, the quotes from Persepolis, they do reflect the double standards of the men versus the women and how the women are objectified. And she's trying to confront the issues of victim blaming and controlling women's bodies. Now I want to turn it over to Lennox, and she is going to tell you about Chicken with Clubs.
Next slide, please. So you heard about Persepolis and how she grew up in the young life. So this is going to be from her other perspective of living with people such as her aunt and uncle. So the film talks about Farquise, which is the wife of which is the aunt, and she has arranged by her husband Narzer Ali and his neglect of the children and destroys his violin. So basically, when she's talking about her uncle, he's like a famous violinist during this time, but he's so overtaken with his career. He's to the point that he's not even really worried about his family, his children, his anything. So what I liked about this, when we're talking about the 7 sins in this, I like how you can reflect on this when it comes to attention. During this time, she was so overwhelmed by him, like not giving the attention that she needs. She actually broke his beloved violin. And he got to the point that he was so upset over it, he literally wanted to die over a violin. But you're not worried about your wife and your children. Okay. So despite his efforts to die, because he wanted to kill himself, Nazir Ali finds himself alive. Then he's haunted by his mother's memory and encountered the angel of death. In his final moments, he dreams about Irene, which is his lost love. This woman that he's over here thinking about, even though he's married with children, before he passes away on the 8th day. Next slide. So these are some quotes that we decided to pick from Chicken and Plums. I came to talk to you, Nazir Ali. Has something happened to him? He hasn't come out of this room for 2 days. You know, artiste, when inspiration strikes, it strikes. So this man is so dedicated to his work. He's trapped in this room, not even paying attention to his wife and his children. Second quote, you finally asked me to marry you. It was the happiest time of my life. But what happened to us? I love you. His response, go to hell. Wow, that's a great marriage. And lastly, it's like a conversation with, like, between some friends. As you know, and you know who stars, I don't care. Ali, friend makes a gesture, a breast. They're talking about breasts over here in front of your wife and everything, but you're already in this troubled marriage. Next slide, please. Okay, so you're probably wondering how Chicken and Plums like relate to the whole resistance of oppression. So Satrapi explores themes of emotional and psychological abuse with relationships. As talked about before, you could talk about the attention that she had to do just to get her husband to even look her way, but it still didn't work. Like, he still did not care. He got to the point that he's over thinking about his ex-love, and then he just wants to commit suicide over a violin. So Nazir Ali, he struggles with regrets of not marrying a woman he knew in his youth, causing him to be frustrated and discontented in his marriage, which then causes his wife to feel oppressed and sexually inadequate. Through her character, Satrapi addresses the complexities of wife. And yes, this was a true story. And next slide, please. So conclusion, Satrapi uses her work to raise awareness about sexual assault and oppression, encouraging dialogue and advocacy for women's empowerment and gender equality. By confronting societal norms and challenging oppressive systems, Satrapi's stories inspires resistance and advocate for a world where individuals are free from discrimination. The next slide, and we'll take it to Ellie.
Dr. S, would you mind letting me share my screen? We're going to play a fun game, bringing awareness, since this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Okay, and there are no right or wrong answers. This is more just to cause us to be reflective. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to answer a few questions. So feel free to drop questions in the chat if you think you know the answer, or you may raise your hand or blurt it out. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why it's not. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Remember those flukes that Dr. S talked about?
Pretty inevitable. I think we did pretty well, you know, almost going an hour without a major fluke. So we'll get it.
Okay, guys. I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen again. Thanks for being patient. Okay, so we have our first question, something to reflect on. What is sexual harassment? Okay, so just take a moment to reflect on that. If you have any thoughts that you feel compelled to share, feel free. Again, there's no right or wrong answers. Just taking a moment to be reflective. Okay. Give everyone a few seconds. Okay. So to us, we felt that sexual harassment is defined by any unwanted sexual advancements. This could mean a lot of things: verbal, physical, psychological. There are so many different individual meanings to this, but this is what stood out to us and what we agreed on. So again, just something to be reflective on. And we automatically get points just for participating. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. All right, next question. What number of girls experience childhood sexual abuse in the United States? Might surprise you. If anyone wants to take a stab, no pressure. Give everyone a few seconds to think about it. Okay, we have 60%, 20%. Okay, let's reveal the answer. 1 in 4 adolescent girls will experience childhood sexual abuse. Way too many. That's what Stacy said. Too many. I agree, Stacy. 100%. Okay. All right. Why do you feel is important to address a sexual harassment and assault?
Because it also leads to like other types of violences up into including fatalities.
100%. 100%. Joy says in the chat to raise
Silence gives a permission to continue on, I believe.
that is so powerful and so true, Stacy. Casey says, so people know it's not okay and it could be a catalyst for worse. This kind of ties into what Kimberly was saying. And again, I agree 100%. And like I said, there's no right or wrong answer to this. This is just be reflective. But for our group, we wanted to share our answer to this. And it's as, excuse me, Stacy and Kimberly were both saying, to protect victims' rights and to keep this from happening, right? To prevent it as much as possible. Okay. So we're going to move on to our fourth question here. And our fourth question is being stubborn. Okay, so moving on to the fifth one. What number of boys experience childhood sexual abuse in the United States? I thought this one might be interesting. Bring some gender representation into the questions. Okay, we have 5% interesting, great. 10%, 1 in 7, 1 in 6. Okay.
I want to say 1 in 5.
1 in 5. All right. 2 in 10. Okay. 1 in 5. Okay, we have a lot of 1 in 5, 1 in 6s. 5%, I saw that one. Okay, so let's see how your answers stack up against facts. So 1 in 20 adolescent boys will experience sexual abuse. Still extremely high. If you think about 20 people that you know or love, and then think, oh, one of them has experienced sexual abuse, that's still a lot. Way too many, as Stacy said earlier. Okay. Can something else to reflect on? Can sexual assault happen outside of the workplace, outside of the home? Think about spaces in which this is possible. Do you think there are any that are off limits? Something just to reflect on. Yes, definitely. Mashley says, yes, definitely. Hashtag mosque me too. In the church, it can happen anywhere. Dr. S says, in and out everywhere. Absolutely. Tamia.
It's bad in hotels too. That's why they make safety devices for those hotel type locks they can pick. It's really bad with women traveling.
So true. And how now there are TikToks coming out showing you how to check for a double-sided mirror. The fact that we have to be aware of such things. Yeah, absolutely. Sexual assault can happen anywhere at any time. And it doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you look like, or what you're doing. Okay. Church, school, absolutely, Tamia. Who can be a victim of sexual harassment and abuse?
Anyone.
I love that the resounding answer is anyone. Absolutely. I said there were no right or wrong answers, but this one, absolutely anyone. Okay, and yes, anyone can be a victim. Let's be aware of that. Anyone. And this goes back to the hashtag mosque me too, as we've learned in this course. It doesn't matter if you're even in a sacred religious place. Okay, you can still be a victim. All right, I'm going to try to revisit. Nope, okay. Well, not that one either. Okay, last one then. Is consent necessary prior to engaging in sexual conduct? Is it always necessary? What about in situations where you've been out drinking? You have a friend staying over that you have a crush on. She said maybe. Well, she didn't say no. Maybe later. Enthusiastic, yes. Ashley says, absolutely. Yes, always. Absolutely. So, yes, consent is always necessary. Always, no matter where you are, who you're with, what's going on, what you've had to drink, what you've been out doing that night, day, morning. Absolutely. Okay, so I tried to get these additional questions to work. They're not. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing and hand it back over to Dr. S. But thank you so much for sitting through our presentation. We had so much fun putting this together, and we are honored to share it with all of you.
Thank you. It was great hearing about Marjane Satrapi. We have 2 more presentations to go. We're doing great. Everybody's been doing a great job. We've been learning a lot. So I will share my screen and we will, let's see. This is the right one. Let's make sure. Yep. So we're back to the bamboozle. There's some resources here and I can share the presentation for anybody who's interested to. My email address is at the end if anybody wants to reach out for the slides of the presentation to look at later. And next we have somebody that probably a lot of people have heard of. Go ahead, group 5, tell us about your person.
Hello, everyone. We're group 5. My name's Charles, and I'm joined by Keisha, Bonnie, and Olivia. And today we're going to present on Malala Yousafzai. And we're going to learn more about her in just a minute. But first, for our group engagement, I'm sure some of you have already read. Can everyone go into the chat and enter a number between 1 and 10 to indicate how far you would personally go to defend your human rights if they were being infringed upon, and 10 being severe and 1 being, I guess, a pushover. We'll just take a second for everyone to go into the chat. Looks like we're seeing a lot of 10s, which means everyone, a lot of 8s. Okay, some lower numbers. That's a tough question, I agree. Okay, so I assume 10 is you would go all the way. 11.
Well, it depends on what you mean too by going all the way, right? I mean, it's like all the way could mean death, all the way could mean, you know, being very loud. So that is hard.
I think we might actually see with Malala, 10 actually may be death. But thank you everyone for posting in the chat. And then at the very end, we'll touch back up on a reflection of this. Can we go ahead and start the video, please?
He asked, "Who is Malala?" He did not give me time to answer his question. And my friend told me, my best friend Muniba, that at that time you just squeezed my hand, you just pushed it with force, and you did not say anything. And then in the next few seconds, he fired 3 bullets.
Next slide, please.
Sorry, everybody. I pushed a button.
Also affected my eardrum, so now I have problem in listening as well. It also cut down my facial nerve, but still.
Let me try that again.
It's a miracle. My
Oops,
brain is
sorry.
safe, my spinal cord is safe, everything is fine. I am alive, and I still can talk. I can smile. So I thank God for that.
Sorry about that little flub, folks. Hopefully you caught most of that, but really powerful words from Malala.
Yes, and you can go to the next slide. I'll take it over from Charles. Okay, so as Charles just introduced Malala to us and asked that challenging question in the chat, and as we've seen her personal recounts of being shot, we're gonna share more about her story. So Malala is a young Pakistani woman, and she became known worldwide for her courageous stand for girls' education in the face of Taliban oppression. She was originally born in the Swat Valley of Pakistan, which at one point in time had become usurped by the Taliban, and they had started to impose strict restrictions on women and girls, banning them from attending school and furthering their education. However, despite these challenges, Malala still remained determined to pursue her education, and she spoke out against the Taliban's oppressive regime. She was around 10 or 11 at the start of the Taliban's rule in her region, and she started blogging for BBC Urdu under a pseudonym, detailing her experiences living under the Taliban rule and advocating for girls' right to education. However, she became a target due to her activism and advocacy, and she became a target for the Taliban. So in 2012, at just the age of 15, she was shot in the head, as she just recounted in the video. I mean, she was on the bus, on her way home from school. She's surrounded by her peers, and literally she had no time to even respond. It was just, "Where's Malala?" Bam, and she was shot. The bullet had grazed her brain, lodged in her shoulder, causing some severe injuries. She was then airlifted to a hospital in Birmingham, England, where she then received refuge because a fatwa was released in Pakistan for Malala. She underwent medical treatment, made a miraculous recovery, and still was able to continue her education. And despite going through this, Malala really became the symbol of this fight against patriarchy, because the fact that you have these grown men that are, calling for her death, and she didn't care, and as we've discussed in class, reading Mona Eltahawy's 7, sins for necessary for women and girls, I think she really is a true example of the chapter when it talked to us about attention. Because she really, to be shot and like just kind of just push yourself through it and still have the ability to speak out with world leaders on how this was wrong and to advocate for other girls in developing countries, that's a big thing. And it's really something to, think about, because again, she was only 15, guys. So yes, and then we have a quote under her picture: "We want schools and education for every child's bright future. We will continue our journey to our destination of peace and education for everyone." I think that's just a lovely way to sum it up. And so I'm going to hand it over to my next group member, Bonnie, and you can go to the next slide.
All right, so some of the accomplishments of Malala since overcoming being shot. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in December of 2014, making her the youngest Nobel laureate in history. And she has dedicated her life to helping girls and women in education. So she established the Malala Foundation. It's a foundation which grants girls the opportunity to achieve and choose any future they want. She published 7 books, 5 nonfiction books, and 2 children's books. And all of our research came from Makisha. We got most of it from Malala's website, which if you want to support her cause, or if you want to find out more information about her and her books, you can go to malala.org. And that has more information where you would like to support her causes. But I'm going to turn it back over to Charles because we have a total for our engagement from the beginning. So Charles.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks again for posting the chat. We don't have to do it again, but if everyone could just take a moment to reflect upon their answer now after hearing Malala's story, after what she went through. Is your answer the same? Is it lower? Is it higher? Would you be willing to die like Malala was? That's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting food for thought. I think most of us live in relative privilege to not have to make that kind of a decision. To live or die trying to be educated, right? So that's, it's really important to think about that privilege that we all have, and the ability for us to be able to be here tonight and in COPA, taking these classes and learning about things and not having to always stand in the line of fire over it. But thank you. So then our last group here, will be talking to us about Dalia Mogahed. So go ahead, group 6.
Okay. So we wanted to start off by doing an interactive poll and see if we can access that. Actually, it might be a little bit difficult. Doc,
do you want to share your screen? I can stop sharing mine and then you can share yours for the poll.
Yeah, that might work better.
All right. Most of the back and forth has gone pretty okay, I think. So this is good.
Fair enough. Okay, let me see. All right. Okay.
While this is loading, I just want to say everybody did a really good job. Proud of y'all.
And if you can't get the actual poll to kind of come up for us all, you can just go ahead and read the question. Oh, there's a QR code that you want us to go to?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
So this is an interactive poll to kind of give you an idea of Dalia, our person's the person we will be presenting on today, and her work. She is actually a data analysis. And so we will today be gathering data to kind of give you like an immersive feel for how it, what she does in her activism. So yeah, you can just go ahead and scan the QR code, and it's a quick poll. You do not have to answer all of the questions, only what you feel comfortable with. And then at the end, we'll kind of analyze as a part of the data analytics.
See if I can pull that up. I had it open somewhere.
And if you aren't able to get the QR code to work, you can just put it in the chat.
All right, I thought I had this open somewhere already. At any rate. Okay, here we go. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. Wonderful. Yes, so first question was, does anyone identify with any faith, religious, or spiritual movement or community? If so, you can add it to the word cloud. So just getting a small taste of all the different faith and religious sectors and communities that are out there. Was everyone able to respond?
Yes, I was.
Wonderful.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few Christian and then non-religious, and then good to know.
So on a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar do you feel you are with Islamic people, Muslim culture, Muslim customs, Muslim practices, and the like? I'll wait for a few more of those to come in. 11 responses so far. Yeah.
A scale from 1 to 5, how familiar do you feel like you are with Islamic people, cultures, customs, and practices?
So, most people, about half of us, would say we are somewhat familiar. A few of us saying that they're highly familiar. Good thing is that no one feels completely ignorant of it. And this question is for those who are comfortable responding. Please, feel free to refrain if you do not wish to respond. But do you personally know someone who has suffered sexual assault or harassment? Everyone said yes. Gives you a great idea of how pervasive it is. How often do you think that sexual harassment or assault occur within religious context or settings? Roughly 3/4 of us said it happens often, with the other quarter or other fifth of us saying that 4 out of 5 are saying often, and 1 is saying every so often. So we all are sort of aware or believe that that harassment is occurring in these contexts.
Thinking of
Oh, please.
sorry, go ahead. Thinking
No,
of
please.
major religious faith communities in the US, which do you guys think are the most likely to report sexual abuse? And so far we have Islam, not sure. difficult question, I'm assuming. Structure and shame, Christianity, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, and the actual answer is Islam.
Yes. So interestingly enough, in which do you think women are least likely to report? You see how we say we thought it would be Islam. We also see so Muslim, Islam are the bigger of the words here. Well done. And it's actually the reverse. So final question here. Raise your
So
hand.
it's actually, what was the
actually
what was the response for this then?
The response for
In which are women least likely to report? Do you know the data there?
So that is a research report that Dalia and Mogahed actually conducted in part with other people, which we were going to segue into. But last but not least, raise your hand if you had ever heard of data analytics before. And 3/4 said, yeah, definitely. Close to a fifth of us said, not sure. So, and lastly, have you heard of Dalia Mogahed or Mogahed before? And most people have not. A quarter of us have. So, Dalia Mogahed, I'm trying to go back to the presentation.
Do you want me to share my screen now? Are we
Sure, you can if
through
you
with the
want.
poll? Yeah. Do you want to just stop sharing yours and then I'll put mine up for to take us out to the end?
That yeah, sure.
All right. All righty, here we go. So, oops, is this the slide you wanted on, or do you want the next one?
Let's see. Try and close that. Yes, so
Okay.
Sure, that segues us into Dalia Mogahed, who actually uses data analytics to conduct innovative research and dispel myths and reveal trends of what's going on in Muslim American communities.
Which happens to also be a male-dominated field.
Yes.
So in a way, she's kind of pioneering on both ends.
Yeah, so to give you a quick overview, she was born in Cairo back in 1974. 4 years later, emigrated to America. She got her BA in chemical engineering, as well as Arabic, and then a master's in journalism and mass communications from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And an MBA, later on went to get an MBA after doing some marketing work from the University of Pittsburgh. She has both a love for social research as well as for leadership counseling, organizational counseling, executive counseling. And so she's opened up a consultancy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But her advising in consulting, business consulting, leadership consulting, has specialized on Muslim American communities, Muslim societies, and the Middle East. So her activism is unique because it combats some of the myths and misconceptions about Islam and about the Muslim faith, and provides insights into these demographics for business, political leaders, academics, researchers, whole 9 yards. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So her accomplishments are sundry. Founder of her own Mogahed consultancy firm. She's a former director of research for the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, which is the country's biggest think tank dedicated exclusively to Muslim American policies and issues. She's a former executive director for the Gallup Center for Muslim Studies. She was also appointed to the President's Advisory Council. I didn't catch that before. On faith-based and neighborhood parties. I mean, you got to enjoy it, you know. Faith-based and neighborhood partnerships, all the way back in 2009. So she's the co-author of Who Speaks for Islam? What a Billion Muslims Really Think, which uses data from the Muslims Study Center. And is a popular TED Talk speaker who focuses primarily on raising pro-Islam awareness and combating Muslim stereotypes, as difficult a fight as that has proven to be.
Probably also important. It's probably also important to mention that in her religion, it is also highly male dominated in terms of preachers and things along that line. So not only is she speaking about sexual assault and her religion, but she is putting herself in a position to where she's kind of breaking the rules. And I'll give it to you, Diatre.
Yeah, definitely. So we had a few different quotes here that really speak to how she tries to reveal some of the misconceptions, what's going on as it pertains to faith and gender. But we wanted to play this clip of one of her TED Talks.
When I was 17, I decided to come out. No, not as a gay person like some of my friends, but as a Muslim, and decided to start wearing the hijab, my head covering. My feminist friends were aghast. Why are you oppressing yourself? The funny thing was, it was actually at that time a feminist declaration of independence from the pressure I felt as a 17-year-old to conform to a perfect and unattainable standard of beauty. I didn't just passively accept the faith of my parents. I wrestled with the Quran. I read and reflected and questioned and doubted and ultimately believed. My relationship with God, it was not love at first sight. It was a trust and a slow surrender that deepened with every reading of the Quran. Its rhythmic beauty sometimes moves me to tears. I see myself in it.
Yep. Did you want me to pause it there?
Yeah. Yeah, Jada, please, if you wanted to take over.
Okay.
So here she's talking about her decision to wear a hijab, which is there's very misconstrued ideas about what it means to wear hijab and along with her faith. And so I think that in breaking down these misconceptions, she's also kind of paving a way for awareness in her data analytics field.
Oh.
About that, I think this was the next slide, right?
Oh,
nope, I missed one. There we go.
Yeah, so just giving an overview of just that of Mogahed's Mogahed's data-based activism is what makes her really unique, is sort of her research, which, you know, flies in the face of what we would expect about you know, Muslim women. It's all predicated on, you know, this social research, these quantitative social research methods, large scale sampling and things similar to that, and just sort of using that academic style of really granular research to reveal these things, these insights. So that's, you know, that's one part of the puzzle with her. also conducting this research studies that reveal trends across various contemporary faith-based communities. She's also a prolific speaker and lecturer across the world and in academic circles, policy circles, business circles. Her consulting and advising primarily aims to dispel these myths that we have about Muslim Americans and Muslim women. So trying to share those insights so they can so people are, I guess, more informed when making their business decisions. So activism, yes, and her activism most of all is grounded in fostering greater cross-cultural and cross-faith dialogue, understanding and collaboration. So yeah, there's a unique style to how she sort of fights for Muslim American women. So yeah, what's the connection here? A lot of different, there are a lot of organizations, whether they be terrorist organizations like the Taliban or or the LR Lord's Resistance Army that are oppressive to women, to sexual minorities, gender minorities, maybe even racist or xenophobic. Dalia is an advocate for pointing out these double standards. And did I believe Kim added onto this? Let me see. So yes, while a lot of different politicians, especially right-wing politicians, and we see this with Trump, try and exploit, sort of the infighting, the violence that you're seeing in a lot of Muslim societies at the time. They use that to become more insular, target Muslims and expand Islamophobia. And they do it for personal or political gain. So Mogahed's work really just stresses how important it is to question these longstanding biases, and how important it is to sort of stand on not accepting it, not being okay with it, or at least questioning it and revealing that there are, there's more than one side to the story, at least. And with her, one thing I did find was that the connection wasn't necessarily clear, but she has conducted that research showing that Muslim American women are actually the likeliest to report being sexually assaulted, which I think even I was surprised at that. So there's a change in what's going on in terms of women's sense of obligation, if you will.
Great, thank you. And we've got some resources here. We've got a general, really important resource on sexual assault awareness and prevention, RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. They have all kinds of resources on their website. They have a national sexual assault hotline that's confidential, a chat line, and then also just a couple of resources on Arab American Heritage Month. So the Arab American Foundation, the Arab American Institute, and the Arab American National Museum have really good resources for learning more about Arab American heritage. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to email me. I'm just going to launch one quick kind of post survey to see, if people learned some things and what worked for people, what didn't work for people. about tonight's presentation, but we're really happy that you all came out to discuss this stuff with us and to hear what the students learned. So thank you all very much. And, you know, we'll hope to see you again at another event, and we'll see how these results panned out. This will help us improve for future events, and to kind of, you know, reinforce that this made an impact.
Okay. Okay. Are we done?
Thank you to everyone. So we'll wait a couple more seconds. A lot of people have finished. We're at about 69%, 70%, 73% participation. So I'll give you about 10 more seconds and I'll end the poll, and I'll kind of, you know, project the results for you all to take a look at as you finish up your evening and go on to go to bed or whatever else the evening has in store for you. But thank you all for attending. And here are the results. So hopefully this was fruitful, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
This was great.
Thank
Everyone did
you.
an exceptional job.
Yes.
Thank you,
a lot.
everybody.
Thank everyone. Have a good night. Have a good night.
Good job, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
you.
Have a good night.
Thank you to all our guests.
Yes, thank you to